I'm the administrative assistant for the Great Smokies Writing Program, and welcome to the first session of Writers at Home for 2022. Thank you all for joining us today as we kick off the semester with our spring faculty reading, and we hear some of the awesome work done by our instructors. As always, we're incredibly grateful to Malaprops for giving us this virtual space. If you want to purchase any works written by our instructors, please consider supporting our friendly neighborhood indie bookstore and buying them through Malaprops. Our instructors have also put together a list of their favorite books, and you can find all of their recommended reads on the listing for this event at the Malaprops calendar, and that's at malaprops.com/event. Another event on their calendar that might be of particular interest to the Great Smokies crowd is upcoming on January 18th at 6 p.m. Heather Newton, co-founder of Asheville's Flatiron Writers Room and occasional Great Smokies instructor, is launching her short story collection, McMullen Circle. And to celebrate, Malaprops is holding a hybrid book launch where Heather will be in conversation with Tessa Fontaine, who's reading for us today. You can attend that event in person at Malaprops or tune in virtually, but RSVP either way using the link on Malaprops calendar. Again, that's calendar is at malaprops.com/event. Two more quick announcements before we get started. We have space in the spring classes led by nearly all of the instructors reading today. Annie Frazier Crandell's 15-week short fiction class From Pen to Polished starts February 2nd. Bruce Spang's 10-week poetry class, Finding the True Voice Within You, starts February 22nd. Sebastian Matthews' 10-week memoir class, Setting the Scene, starts February 23rd. Vicki Lane's 10-week generative photo prompt class, Prose and Photos Coming at Writing Sidewise, starts February 24th. And Luke Hankins' 5-week poetry workshop starts March 21st. And you can find full course descriptions for all our classes on our website, greatsmokies.unca.edu. And lastly, I want to remind everyone that the Thomas Wolfe Fiction Prize, brought to you by the North Carolina Writers Network and administered by Great Smokies, is accepting submissions through January 30th. So submit all of your unpublished short fiction, 3,000 words or less, for the chance to win $1,000 and possible publication in the Thomas Wolfe Review. Our guest judge this year is award-winning author Krista Wilkinson, and for full contest guidelines and submission instructions, visit ncwriters.org. And I think that's everything, so let's get started. Our first reader today is Annie Frazier Crandell, and Annie, I'll pass the mic over to you.
Hey, first of all, thank you, Malaprops, for having us, and hope everybody's warm and cozy out there with all this snow. I was going to read a short story today since my class is a short fiction class, but then I decided to go rogue and read a few pages from a novel that I've been working on for more years than I like to admit. It's called Crazy House, and here's just a little bit of that. I'll have that little man. That's what Mama said to me the first time she caught sight of Bill, standing there in a grubby Food Lion in North Raleigh, overripe fruit smells wafting all around. I hefted a jug of laundry detergent into the cart and turned to look, and there Bill was, price-checking dish soap, getting up real close to the tags to see the difference per ounce. He went with the store brand, nodded, lifted his chin, and saw us. First glance, Bill looked raggedy-ass to me. Not the greatest head of hair, but not bald either. Close cropped, fuzzy, color of damp sand where it wasn't gray. Looked like his styling technique involved rubbing both palms hard against his scalp. Pleated chinos, 2 sizes too big, Hawaiian print polo shirt apparently tucked in after he'd cinched his belt down tight. Aviator-style glasses magnifying his eyes. Bright green eyes, though. Green like moss after rain. Rough as Bill looked to me, I guess Mama saw potential. A project, maybe. She saw a compact man, jaw square and sharp as a table edge. She saw that he might look almost refined if you coaxed him out of the pleats and the palm frond patterns and the glasses like Chem Lab safety goggles, if you found him some clothes that fit. She cleared her throat, sucked her flat belly concave, and pushed her tits out, all to Bill's apparent delight. "Hello, ladies," he said, dipped his head an inch like tipping a top hat. Mama shifted weight onto her left hip to make it jut, make her waist bend. "Well, hello there," she said. "Where did you find that festive shirt?" Bill said, "Oh, I got this one visiting family down in Florida." He stared down the front of it as if he needed to double check that he'd referenced the right one. They introduced themselves, and Mama made her voice go whispery to say he looked mighty handsome in that shirt. Said it even though it did him no favors. He blushed, staring right into her cleavage squeezed up nearly to her chin. Mom always made a habit of flinging out breathy compliments much too soon, which I'm sure had everything to do with the caliber of boyfriend she'd brought home all those years. Did it like a nervous tick. Like if she didn't start the flow of compliments immediately, there'd be none flowing back to her. Bill stuttered out something about her perfume smelling like cookies, and Mama sidled closer, brushing her fingers against his arm, and said, "Well, aren't you sweet? Vanilla's my favorite scent." I may as well have been 100 miles away, rest of the world a blur to them, it seemed. Standing on the outside, I sensed the electricity. Not the dangerous kind that'll sting you, though. The dreamy kind makes even grown folks stare and grin and giggle. Bill did finally notice I was there, looked over at my 16-year-old self and asked if Mama and I were sisters. She squealed and I rolled my eyes way up in my head, unable to abide that tired old line again. "We are not," I said. Mama stepped back and elbowed me and whispered, "You better quit that." So I quit it and smiled real sweet at yet another strange man about to attempt the troubling calculus required to figure Mama and me out. I knew what to expect. It had been the same routine for years. Dude sizing Mama up, the angles and curves of her, Levi's 512s like a vice grip, same ones she'd worn for 20 years. Hair bleached near white, teased up and set crunchy, face all symmetry and openness and light and spider-heavy mascara. Dude looking over at me in my tank top and man-sized flannel shirt and black jeans and green Doc Martens with the laces frayed, looking at my dark hair hanging long, my molars clenched down hard and fierce, eyes staring deadly right through him. Then, the best part, dude looking squint-eyed back at Mama, his face a series of questions. A conundrum. That's what we've presented to new folks ever since 8th grade when my body reshaped itself in Mama's image, but I refused to follow suit in any other department. And yet, Bill didn't look at us like the rest. More like he was trying not to look. He didn't even squint back at Mama at the end, just smiled and stuck his hand out toward me and said, "I'm Bill, and you are?" I shook his hand, said my name, felt myself soften without meaning to, tried to regain some kind of edge by setting my jaw again, but couldn't ignore the flitting thought that such a softening might very well mean something. I let the thought go, decided to play it cool until I saw whether Mama went for him in earnest. Not 10 minutes later, those two paraded out the sliding doors with parallel carts into the stagnant heat of mid-August, phone numbers scribbled in spaces between receipt-backed car wash coupons. I brought up the rear, scuffing my heels on the asphalt all the way to the car, wondering what in hell had just happened. They made eyes, promised to call, parted ways. Mama hummed all the way home with the windows down, warm breeze on our faces. Took me a while to place it, but then I realized she was humming Dolly's Green-Eyed Boy. Oh, the sigh I let out. Mama, that's a sad song, I thought. Don't jump to that part yet. But jumping two-footed is the only way Mama's ever known to do things. Every new man she met, she'd start off humming some old Dolly song. But always, eventually, there she'd be playing Jolene on repeat when things fell apart. She hummed the sad song Happy, I guess because it fit Bill on the surface, the green eyes part, not the boy part. Hummed it like she loved looking into that green, letting herself fall way down in it. She wholly ignored the many melancholy words about lost love, about regret. How like Mama, forever cutting those gray eyes away from anything unpleasant. I shook my head and turned on the radio. Dixie Chicks singing Ready to Run. God damn it, I thought, not this either. I spun the sound way down, took a breath, and prepared myself for the inevitable. Me watching Mama fall for another one, then swooping in a few weeks or months later to pick up the pieces of her sweet broken heart, holding on to her and saying yet again, "Mama, it's going to be all right. We're going to be all right." But that's not what happened at all. After years of misfires, Mama finally hit the target she'd been aiming at, waltzed into that food line, filled her shopping cart, marched out with a bonus future husband in tow. And that's where I'll stop for now. Thanks.
Thank you so much. There's so many just beautiful images, and I think you really captured, and the one that stood out to me especially was green like moss after the rain, and you really captured the mannerisms people have like looking down at the shirt. That's totally awesome. I hope you finish the novel. I'm sure we all can't wait to read it. And next we'll hear from Tessa Fontaine.
Hello, hey everybody. Thanks so much for having me, Malaprops and Great Smokies. I'm delighted to be teaching with y'all this semester. And since I'm teaching a memoir class, I thought I would read a little bit from my memoir. Please excuse this copy, which one time when I was giving a reading, the host had a dog who did a little editing on my reading copy, but now it's very dear to me. So that's why it looks like this. Okay, so I'm just going to read a short section from a chapter that kind of comes in the middle. And yeah, all right, it's called The Sword Swallower. Oh, I should say, this is a memoir about running away with the last American traveling sideshow. So day 71 of 150 into life out on the road with a sideshow and carnies. Chris Christ is hunched on a stool with hands as big as truck tires and his two continual streams of black snuff running from the corners of his mouth. Tess, he shouts, it's time to learn. He knows every act backward and forward and is a former chimp trainer and knife thrower. Stand here, he says, pointing beside him. His legs are stretched straight and wide from the stool. Maybe this should be a moment of hesitation. I don't hesitate. He puts one hand on my clavicle and one hand on my forehead, presses. Stand up straight, he says, straighter. It's early evening and there's a pause in our regular day, a storm. Lightning nearby, it's temporarily shut down the fair. He pushes my head back until I am staring straight up into the eye of our tent's center pole. You've got to be lined up perfectly straight, he says, or you will never get the sword down. In India, fakirs beginning as early as 2000 BCE swallowed swords and walked across hot coals, handled snakes and stepped on broken glass as ascetic tributes to the divine, as assertions of power, connection, and invulnerability. What is a body if you take its power over you away? Loose carny children dripping rainwater peek under our tent's sidewall. It's still pouring. The fair is closed until the storm passes so that nobody gets struck by lightning at the top of the Ferris wheel. Chris has said it's time for me to swallow swords. It's one of the only acts I haven't yet learned, and we all need to know every act in case anything happens to anyone, he says. It feels good to put the blade in my mouth. But good isn't quite the right word for how it feels to have the metal inside. It isn't complicated enough. It feels dangerous and important, one of the pinnacle sideshow acts, and it hurts. Something jammed in the throat leads to gagging and the rise of bile. There are 3 sphincters to pass in the throat and esophagus, a body's emergency brakes. Do you want to know the secret to all the sideshow acts right now? Are you ready? Untrain your instincts. Unlearn self-preservation. There are 5 big caged lights hanging from the tent center pole that emit a soft buzz against the storm dark. The wet earth smell has, for a moment, overtaken the funnel cake and corn dog grease that hangs in the air all day. A wrong wrist twitch and the sword inside might pierce my lungs. It might nick my heart. I feel some relief as I stop imagining the pain of others and instead live inside my own potential for catastrophe as I look for the divine. Think of the blade going down your throat like it's a big stiff prick. Red, who swallows swords inside the show, tells me he can slide 12 down his throat at once. He holds 7 Guinness World Records. It says so on his van. And the gag reflex, think of that as just little pubic hairs tickling your throat, he says, winking. Tommy's folded a coat hanger into a sword for practice, which he made by straightening a wire hanger all the way out, doubling it, and then twisting a handle. Mimicking him, I lick both sides and tilt my head back, let the metal rest on my tongue. I choose a little danger. Anything can happen to anyone. Last season, the knife thrower flung his blade against the board, The knife thrower flung his blade at the board and it landed in his longtime partner's thigh. She was taken to the hospital for stitches, but 30 minutes later, when their act came around again and she was still gone, another cast member had to go stand on the board. She had to know how to go stand on the board as if she didn't know how blood looks falling down the angles of fishnets. Had to know how to immediately erase memory. That's the predictable kind of crisis in this business, of course, and the predictable victim. But there's a whole carnival of bodies being whipped through space on big machines, and sex and meth and the momentary elation of being the object of attention under those bright stage lights. And the truth is, there are potential crises all around at every minute. I heave. My throat's gag keeps catching, and I cough hard, waiting for the vomit to rise. When I pull the sword out a quarter inch, it's gone down. The metal has flecks of white and clear fluid on the tip. Relax your throat, Chris says. Some people are naturals, Red says. He watches me attempt a few swallows and cough. And some people aren't, he says, staring me down. Rain is falling up from the ground. I've tried and coughed the hanger sword out 20 times. It's hard to tell how far it's gotten, but I don't think I've even passed by the first gag sphincter. This is the one, I say. I lick, puff my chest as I lean back, and the tip hits my sphincter, and I keep shoving it in anyway, and then I feel something rising, and I pulled the sword, and I double over and retch. Half an inch down, Chris says. I try to high-five him, still buckled over, but my hand doesn't even reach his plane of vision. I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was amazing. I loved the way you just were able to seamlessly weave together like the history and the origins of these different circus acts with the present and then your introspection, especially the phrase, just the one that stood out to me was the body's emergency brakes. That was just fantastic. Thank you so much. And our next reader today is Luke Hankins.
Thanks so much, Lily, and thanks to all my fellow faculty members and the Great Smokies Writing Program. I am looking forward to teaching a poetry workshop, and I am wearing my Taz hat in honor of the weather, which I'm looking at outside my office window here. I've had this hat since high school. Our basketball team was like at an away game and we all stopped at a truck stop and got Looney Tunes hats. So this has been with me a long time. I am going to read a mix of poems, some from my latest book, Radiant Obstacles, and some from a forthcoming chapbook called Testament. The first poem is called Category Error. Hummingbirds are fighting over the flowers in the garden again because beauty doesn't make anything immune to cruelty. Imagine a world in which each beautiful creature could be trusted. And isn't each creature beautiful? The sleek, streaked coat of the tiger, the iridescent scales of the snake, the shockingly blue eyes of the shooter on the evening news. This is called Mercy Kills. It was a 2 mercy kills day. First, a snake. I stepped into the road to move it into the woods, but a car came hurtling toward us and I watched the tires bludgeon the snake. It was still moving. I found a heavy stone. Wincing, I slammed it down and had to several times. Second, a possum. It flashed into my headlights and there was no time to stop before I felt the sickening bump. I turned the car around to make certain it was dead. It wasn't. It was writhing. No, I'd have to say roiling like a serpent. I ran it over again aiming for its head, reversed the car again. My hands felt dirty the rest of the night. More than once I woke and scrubbed them, stupid as it sounds. To comfort me, some might call me merciful. Don't call me merciful. Call me mercy's executioner. This is a poem called Faith. It is about Harold Camping, who was an evangelical preacher who predicted the end times throughout the course of his life, multiple times, predicted the end of the world, the apocalypse. And, it never happened. And eventually he, after his final failed prophecy, he passed away. And this is a poem about him, dedicated to him after his final failed prophecy. And it's called Faith. Now he will have to face the breathing machine, the morphine, the ordinary death, the humiliation of having thought himself bestowed a rare place in the ecclesiastical annals. A soul privileged to see the Lord returning on the clouds to meet him in the air. At 89, he at last encounters his mortality and trembles, wondering if his faith too will prove mortal. Sue, he says to his daughter on the phone as the hour of his rapture passes, I'm a little bewildered. And now a small poem about my own experience of loss of faith. If you've read any of my work, you know that this is a frequent theme in my writing. This one's called Crucifix. Christ hangs from his wrists, arms fully extended and useless, his full weight sagging on the nails. Imagine the gravity of that pendant on your neck. The moment when God can no longer pull himself up for a breath, when the fluid filling his pericardium and pleura at last smothers him. But I wear no necklace anymore. Of all things I've lost, along with my faith, I'll miss most the ability to pity God. A little bit of a lighter poem now called The Dock at the End of the World. It's a bit of snow in here, which is why I thought of reading it. The Dock at the End of the World. When you're sad, we'll go walking through the fog until we find the dock at the end of the world, where we can peer into the vacuum of space and dance a silent waltz to no music, making our own time. Left 2-3 toward the shore, right 2-3 toward the nearest star. The fog has cleared now, and we're standing in the cold breeze, listening to the patter of snow flurries on our coats. The lampposts behind us shed an eerie light over the dock at the end of the world, casting our shadows halfway across the water. We reach up, and the hands of our shadows touch the far shore. One final poem. This has an epigraph from an incredible poem by Dennis Johnson called Now. And the epigraph is, Darkness, my name is Dennis Johnson. Darkness, my name is Luke, and that means light, so it can't be near. You've banished it. Darkness, what is your name? You so envelop it within the folds of your being, I'll never reach it. You swallow me, but not deeply enough. My name is a pillar of fire I remember but cannot see. Darkness, Swallow me, swallow me. I hear you are a gateway. Prove it. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just writing things down and thinking, it's like every time I've heard category error and I've read it a few times, but every single time that last line is always just a gut punch. And I think that's a theme throughout several of your poems. The last line, just you've mastered that technique of just switching it. So the last line always leaves you thinking. So thank you for sharing those with us. And next we have Vicki Lane.
Thank you, Lily, and thanks to Malaprops for hosting this series and for being such a really fine bookstore. The class that I will be teaching needs a little bit of explaining. Some years ago, there was a picture prompt blog called Magpie Tales. It was the brainchild of a blogger known as Willow. There were many enthusiastic participants, and part of the fun was seeing the diverse responses to the same picture. In my upcoming class, folks will be asked to respond to prompts from others, as well as to provide picture prompts of their own. The class is meant to spark creativity and tempt people to explore in prose or poetry, briefly or in several pages. You can go wherever your mind takes you. It's a fine chance to try out different writing styles. I'm going to read you a few two different responses to my prompts from these long ago Magpie Tales. This particular prompt was a picture of a box of carpenter's nails, the nails spilled out all over. I could have gone all serious and written about things that hold things together, but I chose another path. It all began that night at a bar called the Workbench. Yeah, I know, the regulars are a bunch of tools, but hey, it's handy, man. Me and some of the other fellows were drinking rusty nails. It'd been that kind of a week, and I was ready to get hammered. 9 Inch Nails was playing, and the pounding beat was really getting to me when all of a sudden Brad says, hey, look at that hot dip galvanized little number. How'd you like to nail that one? And I see her over there, all shiny, slim, and sharp looking. She's with a couple of tacky losers, you know, the kind they always say has a terrific personality. But this one, well, she can ride in my nail belt anytime. Me, I'm a big galoot, tough as nails, and I stand out in this crowd of common nails. I can see she's looking me over, but playing it cool, know what I'm saying? So I sort of meander on over to where she is and offer her a coffin nail. We stand there smoking for a while, just kind of getting to know one another. I asked, does she come here for the music? And she says, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It sure wasn't for the company. Turns out her name's Penny, and she's got a boyfriend named Spike. But I know this Spike thinks he's a big stud when he's nothing but a common framing nail. I could chew him up and spit out carpet tacks. One thing leads to another, and I ask, can I drive her home? She wants to know, am I hitting on her? But then she says, yeah, and ditches the girlfriends. And once we're at her place, it doesn't take long for us to get to the point, if you know what I mean. I didn't see her again. Months went by, and one night I'm on the computer checking out exotic fasteners and then watching a video called Nailin' Palin when I get a call. It's the hot number from the bar. She has to remind me of her name, and then, well, not to put too fine a point on it, she tells me I'm a daddy, says there are all these little nails and they're crowding her out of the house, and she wants me to do something. I think I'll go get hammered. Another prompt was a picture of a cast iron frying pan, and I shamelessly just expanded on a joke my great aunt had once told. It was the Hendersons' turn to host the preacher for Sunday dinner after church, and Mama, somewhat reluctantly, had sacrificed several of the young roosters she'd been planning to trade for sugar, coffee, and calico at the nearby mercantile. Every last one of the young'uns needed new shoes too, what with winter coming on. But the pride of the family rested on how well the preacher was fed at their house. And so Mama sacrificed 4 young cockerels, fried them up in the big black frying pan atop the modern-made cook stove. Snowy biscuits, green beans simmered with side meat, creamed corn, smothered potatoes, turnip greens with vinegar and chopped onions, home-churned butter, an assortment of jams and jellies and pickles crowded the table, along with pitchers of sweet milk, and buttermilk. Mama looked at her work and saw that it was good. The family waited, heads bowed and hands folded, while the preacher asked a lengthy blessing. No sooner was the amen out of the preacher's mouth than he reached for the platter of fried chicken and scooped up 2 large pieces of white meat. That old preacher can sure hide him some fried chicken, little Clete whispered to his brother as the platter made a circuit of the table and the preacher reached for more. He talked and he munched and he reached for more till a pile of chicken bones grew on the table beside his plate. As the meal continued and the platter of chicken was reduced to a wing, a back, and a gizzard, Papa whispered to Mama, and she rose with a look of thunder on her face and made her way to the kitchen. If the preacher heard the back door slam or the clucking of the chicken scurrying for cover, he gave no sign, but just reached for that last wing. If he heard the thunk of the axe on the stump or the sizzle and crackle of more chicken parts hitting the frying pan, it didn't stop him from accepting the back and the gizzard when the platter came round again. And when Mama returned, her mouth set in a tight line and her eyes steely, the preacher didn't notice her lowering expression, but smiled happily and helped himself to another piece of white meat as the second platter of hot fried chicken was set before him. But even preachers finally get their fill, and as Mama was clearing the table, the preacher leaned back with a deep sigh of satisfaction. Just outside, the old rooster began to crow long and loud. The preacher smiled indulgently. Just listen to that feller, won't you? Don't he sound proud? Huh, snorted Mama as she collected the pile of chicken bones from beside the preacher's plate and piled them on the second empty platter. You'd crow too, did you have 6 sons in the ministry? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Those are great. I think, I know especially with the first prompt, I think I'm not the only one I saw in the chat. Everyone was loving the puns. And the second one, the last line again, that was awesome. So I think you've shown that there's such a diversity of what can be done with picture prompts. So if any of our viewers would like to write picture prompts with Vicki, there's still space in her class. And so next we will hear from Sebastian Matthews.
Thank you, Lily. I'm going to be reading from a book called Beyond Repair, Living in a Fractured State. It's a memoir and essays. They're not really essays, really. They're kind of micro essays or encounters written between about 2014 and 2018. I'd been coming out of a recovery and a PTSD state after a big car wreck and was kind of seeing the world through the eyes of that state and began to see that really everybody around me seemed to be in the same place. Obviously it's gotten worse. So I'm just going to read you 3 short pieces about 3 encounters. This first one's called No Trespassing. The Dawsons had reserved a point replete with fire pit and picnic tables. Your son's league soccer team is meeting at Biltmore Lake to celebrate the end of a long season. 2 sturdy ducks with red masks parole the area like boardwalk thugs. A loose circle of parents drink beer. You watch as Bob stacks wood for the bonfire. Oh, hell, you think, I better help Bob. But as you approach, you realize it's not Bob, but some lake staffer filling the wood bin. You keep walking, pretending you didn't make the mistake, and he pretends to. This is a wealthy community, waspy elite country club, retiree golf crowd wealthy. The wood the young man has delivered is perfectly cut for the pot. The lawn's trimmed to fairway length. You hate these kind of places, and despite yourself, you feel at ease in them. On the surface, you fit right in. Inside, you are roiling. These are your people's people, not yours. Now you're approaching the shoreline, which is evenly populated with huge lake houses. There's a trail for members only. I'm here with the Davisons, or I'm here with the Dawsons, you'll say, though they don't live here. They've put me up in their guest quarters. The dusk light, the low 70s weather, the steady breeze, all of it feels pre-ordered by the board. You walk until you're out of sight, just you and the roughneck ducks, the rustling trees. Trespass until you feel like turning back. No one will know you were here. A lot of this book is about intersections and kind of collisions between people of different class and different race and different politics. And and making attempts all the time as I move out further and further in the world, as I get healthier, to make connection. And here's one of those moments of connection. It's called Quarter. Like the first one, this is also set in Asheville. And by the way, Luke, I used royaling too. I don't know if you noticed that, but we used the royaling twice in one reading. I don't know. Very literary, too literary maybe. Sunday afternoon, and nearly all the machines are chock full of spinning, churning clothes, towels, sheets. A young man in yoga pants and an old t-shirt is lifting out yoga pants and old t-shirts from the washer and draping them over the wheeled laundry basket's overhanging bar. An older jumpsuited woman with an echo of a cigarette on her lip drags a plastic tub of sodden curtains to the open mouth of a dryer. Another woman, much younger, dour of expression, sits on a bench engrossed in her smartphone, empty garbage bags gaping at her feet. Three young boys gallop around a bank of dryers, and pass around her like a raging river slipping over boulders. She keeps scrolling unperturbed, clanking away. Two change machines on the wall dispense quarters, 5, 10, 20. Above, a big screen television mounted on the wall broadcasts Law and Order, sound down low. A clutch of bored souls lounges in a line of scuffed rocking chairs, not so much watching the show as absorbing its aura. We've been without washer and dryer for weeks, and will be for the foreseeable future, while the renovation project invents new ways to sabotage itself. New permits required, workers injured, roof leaks sprung. It's been more than a decade since I've hauled dirty clothes out of my car, purchased little rectangular boxes of detergent, or spoon-fed quarters into ancient leaking machines. And I kind of like it. Along with the pickup basketball court and the DMV line, the laundry attracts its own little democracy. Soccer moms dump 3 children's worth of sports garb in a jumbo washer. Construction workers arrive in pairs. A waitress I recognize from a pizza place up the street toils over a gigantic pile of unfolded clothes, an unlit cigarette behind one ear. I'm most intrigued, however, by the dapper gentleman dressed to the nines, standing by as a single load of tricolor towels whirls and twirls. What's he doing? Cleaning up after murder? I retreat to my car. There's a guy taking a piss in a stand of trees. A righteous young couple sits in their outfitted van, not quite hippie, more utilitarian festival, facing each other, legs crossed, parallel playing on their laptops. I've got room in my hatchback to create my own portable study and a gallon of water to swig. 22 minutes to go before I head back inside and introduce myself to the bank of dryers. Now I'm standing by, impatiently waiting for the last load. One of the women who works here is going from dryer to dryer, pushing a wheeled laundry basket, dumping coin boxes one after the other into a plastic tub. She has a key attached to a chain that she turns to open the box, which slides right out. The steady cascade of coins pries 2 girls from their floor drawing to see what's up. That's a good sound, I say, trying not to hover behind the women menacingly. Yep, she says, not looking my way. Sure is. She moves on to the next pair of machines, but pauses mid-key, looks over at me. I always try to listen. She puts a finger up to her ear, tapping it lightly for that sound. I smile at her, though, not sure what she means. I listen for that one silver sound. She turns back to her work. 1 quarter is usually pure silver, you know. Key and slot, box slid out, dumped in the tub. I listen for the silver sound, but can only hear the dull roar of coins dropping from their chute. Woman nods in my direction, back in her work groove, bumping the basket with her thigh to get it rolling again. She opens the next box, the next. One short one to finish in honor of MLK Day. This is called King. It's set in Oxford, England. I was there for a conference and was at a bar late at night, maybe drinking rusty nails, I don't remember. And we were sitting in a pub, and this will tell you the story. King. The pub is cozy and quiet. 2 elderly professors visiting faculty in Oxford for a conference lounge in the corner, up late to savor a whiskey before bed. A young British couple sits on a nearby couch drinking ale, quietly eavesdropping. Eventually, the young woman leans in and asks the pair if they are from America. The couple teaches American history in their local high school, the Civil War and civil rights in particular, They've been listening in carefully, aware from the level of conversation that the American professors are scholars at the top of their fields. That they are African-American only makes it better. The young couple moves forward in their seats, eyes widening to the opportunity before them, and asks politely if they can posit a question about Martin Luther King Jr. and whether he was the central figure in the civil rights movement. One of the professors shakes his head with a tired smile and leans closer. Can we take notes? The young woman asks, only half joking. She knows it doesn't get better than this. And the professor explains that MLK at first was a reluctant leader, and that when looking at movements in history, you must figure out who stood beside the main figure. Looking first to the left, Ralph Abernathy, then to the right, Coretta Scott King, and then you had to look back behind these three representative figures, John Lewis, and learn just how they came to stand in their respective places and just what transpired to bring them to those spots. The who, the how, the why, the what. The bartender announces last call and starts collecting glasses. When I head up to my room, the young couple is still earnestly asking their questions, and the two professors are still answering them, the quartet of faces close together in the candlelight. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. Those are really great. I think you really did a great job of capturing those collisions and interactions. And I think that's a relatable topic for all of us, especially now that struggle to make connection within our own communities even. Yeah, I think also your upcoming class is on the blend between fiction and memoir and those intersections. I think especially in little lines like what's he doing cleaning up after a murder, that introspection is a great example of that blend between fiction and reality. So if you want to sign up for Sebastian's class, there's space as well on our website.
And thank you. I flubbed the line, so you actually made it, you saved me there by hearing it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And so our last reader for today is Bruce Spang.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone hanging around on this day. I also appreciate being able to read with such fine writers. And I'm going to be reading 3 poems since for the last 2 years, we've been sort of sheltered in place. So the place one goes oftentimes is memory. So I was looking on YouTube and I was seeing all these videos of Elvis Presley and his last concerts. And I became sort of intrigued with him. I read a couple of biographies of him. And this poem sort of came out of that inquisitiveness. At the Market Square Arena in Indianapolis, June 26, 1977, Elvis tugs at his oversized Mexican sundial belt buckle, as if the sun god holds a time forgotten when Elvis, the young stud, shook his hips and wasn't a 256-pound, 43-year-old man in a glittering white jumpsuit sparkled with gold nails that barely contains his belly from bursting through its seams. His jet back hair swirled back, his mutton chop sideburns, his gyrating hips, trademarks of the once teen idol, still make 18,000 fans wild to see the king who is down on his luck. Joking with his bodyguards, he strides up the arena tunnel, blitzes out on Valium, codeine, and Quaaludes toward a stage where women press close in, ready to swoon and claw for his white, sweaty silk scarves. Once on stage in his element, despite his puffy face, his eyes clouded, the songs pour out of him as if he wrote, "Are you lonesome tonight?" Hound Dog and Jailhouse Rock, as if it were back in 1958. For tonight, his showmanship carries him past sleepless nights and keeps him from weeks later a massive overdose. His voice, the one true part of him, never leaves him. Even the swagger of a kid is there, as are the girls, although grown women now, who scream and hurl their bodies at him as if they could fling the sun back to 1958 when I was in 7th grade at the Hard Hop, and Nancy Short, the redhead, hankered for a boy with the right moves, asked me to dance. Elvis's "Love Me Tender" would tell my arms to reach around her, press her close to me, never let her go. His voice would become my voice. We would dance the whole song hip to hip. Then I would thank her and Elvis and know why girls reach out to him, never want him to go, as he bows the last time to the left, to the right, in the front and rear of the stage. And each time the screams rip across the arena as he jogs down the exit ramp to his pink Cadillac limousine that will take him away. As the wife's scarves refuse to wave surrender, but try to lure him back to slip the scarf across his neck, press the microphone close to his lips, and breathless sing. This one is a poem about my father that I've been writing. Sometimes you just write poems over and over again. This is one of them. It's called What We Remember When Father Lay Dying. Between my parents' bedroom and ours, there was a long knee-high cubbyhole tall enough for suitcases that my brother and I could crawl to peer out at our father's body in boxer shorts, strewn on his bed, his mouth agape, snoring big, looping, guttural snorts that startled flies. His bean pole legs and string bean arms spread out as if he'd fallen from enormous height. If he knew we watched him, he'd tan our hides. At our nap time, he'd snatch and lug us under his arms like sacks of dirt, flipped down, near, ripped far. 3 steps at a time he ascended, then flung us on our beds, laughing. That's when the giant slept. When we crept close to him, the floor creaked, his eyelids fluttered. We dared not touch. Mother warned us, don't disturb your father. Yet there we were. Not after geese with golden eggs nor bags of gold, not even a golden carp that could lull him to sleep. We craved to be close to his quivering lips, to peek inside his dreams. This man who wore 3-piece suits, who dressed us for excess in Brooks Brothers Navy blazer, who climbed the corporate ladder, yet got stuck at vice president, with the keys of the kingdom out of reach, and us, part of his ambition machine, to outdo him, to endure his snarls of distemper when we didn't act right, when we weren't just so. We liked him being quiet, still. Half a lifetime later, with tubes stuffed in his nose, monitors at his bedside, mouth drooped, breath uneven, no longer a man to spit commands, but frail at the end of life's stalk. He gazed at us and wondered who had axed his heart that would last 2 more days. No fairy tale giant, but a shrunken has-been in a hospital bed, his skin a yellowish gold in the afterlight of the afternoon in March, who asked, have I lived a good life? As if we were the final arbiters of this body we could have lifted, and if we let go, would have floated out the window into clouds. A good life, we thought. What's that? A man who had a Lincoln Continental under a palm tree? That he had. Who had a martini at boom boom hour every day? By all means, yes. A man who was a seeker of truth and beauty. You must be kidding. But he asked again, as if his swats, slaps, and insults were forgotten. What dare we say there beside the body as his heart gave out? The last poem is sort of part of work I've been doing. I'm going to be teaching a class on gay, lesbian, transgendered by poets from the turn of the century to now, and looking at their craft, because many of them are just amazing stylists, and then doing a workshop based on some of their poems to kind of look at how we could do that, even if we're straight, and great poems. So this is a poem that sort of reflects my looking back at an earlier part of my life. Remember, Michael, that swimming pool dressing room where 3 older boys stripped, each with pubic hair and pencil line fuzz up to their navel. Our few hairs were wiry question marks. The guys laughed as one grabbed the other guy's cock as if he owned it. They told how they got caught jacking off, but not just alone, but with each other, and were close to you know what when Ken's dad stepped in just as Bobby let go. Dad told him, clean up, get dressed, come downstairs. The dad said, elbows to knees, warned, you shouldn't be doing that. It's not right. Oh, I understand, boys, experiment. It's just a phase. You need to stop. They had no intention of stopping, no matter how wrong it was. That summer, you and I, sequestered in your bedroom, filled tissues, wads of them, with the remains of desire. We never got caught, but we knew what we did was no laughing matter, because although our lives went on, both married with kids, we sensed something drew us together that wasn't just playing around. You went to our 30th high school reunion, flamboyant as always, letting yourself be. Craig, a used car salesman, 10 years later at our 40th, told me, Michael weirded me out, acted like a fairy, limp wrist, the whole fag thing. We laughed. What was wrong with him? A month later, big news, sad really, he blew his brains out. A waste. Wrong. Simple word. And bullet, why can't it stay in its chamber? I'm talking to you, Michael, before you go to the basement, before you check the chambers of the revolver, before the cool metal touches your temple, before you grasp the trigger in your soft, gentle hand. I'm speaking to you because I can still feel your hand, the bed we sat upon, and the way you caressed my cock as if it was a god. Had I been there beside you, Craig, beside Craig at the 30th, I wouldn't have laughed, nor tried to fit in anymore. I would have taken you aside, looked you in the eye, and told you our lives depend upon what we dared not say and was never spoken, of the love I still have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Those were really powerful. And I think your quote at the beginning, that the place one oftentimes goes is memory, that would be a wonderful theme for a chapbook to tie all those together, because I think all of those three pieces combine this idea of memory and poetry as a way of connecting our past selves with our present, and even to people we've never met, like Elvis, or to people like your father. And to Michael, that'd be just a fantastic chapbook. So maybe I hope to see one someday.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the end of our program today. So thank you to everyone again for reading, and thank you to everyone for joining us. If you want to join us for our next Writers at Home, it will be on February 20th, and will feature Heather Newton in conversation with Vicki Lane as they discuss Heather's short story collection, McMullen Circle. Until then, a huge thank you again to Malaprops for hosting us. Please check out their amazing events that are coming up and consider supporting the store. You can check out the rest of Great Smokies classes at greatsmokies.unca.edu. And I hope you all stay safe and stay warm in this winter weather.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Fun reading with all of you. Thank you.